One of the fun things I got to do as a professional writer, in addition to writing for the newspapers for 20 years, one of the things I got to do too was to write for Marvel and for Star Wars on officially licensed products. So in 2009, same year that I won that award, I began my kind of side career, if you will, as a freelance game designer is what they call it, but it's basically a writer for what they're now calling TTRPGs, which are tabletop role playing games. So things along the lines of Dungeons and Dragons. And so I was working for the same company that made Dungeons and Dragons, but I was working on the Star Wars Saga Edition, is what that role playing game was called. So in 2009, I started work on the Clone Wars campaign guide, which won a Silver Any Award at Gen Con. And so, which is kind of like a second place in the world, so it's still pretty prestigious. I didn't write on any in 2011. That was the year of the Joplin tornado, so I did do the tornado book. And so I have like 40 some images in that book. So my life was pretty much consumed in 2011 by the tornado. And then in 2012, I got offered a freelance job as a tabletop role playing game writer, as a game designer for the Marvel line. And so this was called Marvel Heroic Role Playing. It was published by Margaret Weiss Productions, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But Margaret decided to retire. But she's been in the business since the days of Dragonlance. She was the original editor on Dragonlance and one of the writers for the Dragonlance novels. And I wrote different scenarios about the Green Goblin. I wrote, with my background in journalism, I begged to get to write about all the journalists in the Marvel universe. And of course, this is based more off the comic books, but the book I got to write for was Civil War, back before there was a Civil War in the MCU in the movies. And this was after the Civil War comic had come out, and so we most of our information came from that. And I had read the Front Line, and the Front Line was a Marvel comic series that focused on the journalists and the heart of. So instead of focusing on the superheroes, the storyline focused on all these different journalists. But yeah, so anyway, but it's a lot of fun. It's different. The Civil War book won. That was the one that won the Origins Award, which is it won a first place like international award, which is really cool. But yeah, it's pretty neat. So a little claim to fame. Not big fame, but yeah. Basically, I shot this kind of thing every so often whenever there would be a deployment. And then I would go to wherever the location was and get photos of people kissing their babies and hugging their kids. And this one was really special because it was just this officer. Well, I don't know if he's an officer, but this soldier. They're army, so they're soldiers. And this soldier was hugging both his kids equally, and I liked it that one was a boy and one was a girl, and it just showed this equal love, and he's just embracing them both. And so it turned out really good. The original photo's actually in color. That's a black and white print, but yeah, it was a good shot, and obviously the AP liked it. So, but anyway, yeah, pretty cool stuff. So it was fun. One of those mini honors. So yeah. It's kind of a long story. Um, Maybe more time than you actually have. Um, let's see. So basically, I before I came here, I spent 20 years in the newspaper industry. I originally just had a bachelor's, and like I said, I worked in the industry for like 20 years, and the market's not the best in journalism, especially for someone who's been around for a while. The top pay is kind of disappearing, things like that. And so I got to a position where the particular company that I was with, They'd been freezing. They'd frozen our wages for like 6 years, somewhere around there, and so I hadn't had a raise in like 6 years, and everything was going up. Rent was going up. That was a deciding factor. And my mentor, Mike Gullett, who was my photography mentor, he had left journalism also and went into academia to become a professor. And he just retired a couple years ago from Pitt State as their professor of photojournalism. And Mike said, "You should do this too. You should, go into teaching." So yeah. So anyway, so I knew that I wanted to teach at that point, and like I said, I had thought about it before. It just that was kind of the point where I said, "Yeah, I need to make this happen now." And Mike was telling me how much he made, and I was like, "Oh wow, that's a lot more money." And it's still not great money, but it's still better money than what I was making at the time. And I'm not someone who has super expensive tastes or anything, although my camera equipment is rather expensive, but tools of the trade and all that.